All right. So today I'm chatting with Zak Hanshew from NBC Sports Edge or Rotoworld, taking a look behind the scenes at what life is like as a fantasy basketball analyst. Let's go balls deep.
I could bet all of the riches that I ever had.
Hey guys, thanks for joining me for this episode, the first episode of the Balls Deep Fantasy Basketball Podcast, brought to you by Fantasy Basketball International. I'm your host, Adam King. You can find me over on Twitter at AdamKing91. Check out all of our content at the website fbibasketball.com. As I said, today I'm joined by Zak Hanshew. This is sort of a relaunch. We had the Clutch Time podcast, which went for a while, and then B-Dub and I both sort of got distracted by our lives, unfortunately, at work. And the Balls Deep podcast is just something that I've wanted to do for a long time. I've sort of had it in the back of my mind, and I spoke to him, and he said, let's go for it. So thought we'd just do a bit of a relaunch or a rebranding here. We will be filling out a schedule in terms of weekly shows and that sort of thing. But initially, I just wanted to launch with this sort of one-on-one interview series. So this is something that I've had in the works, or I reached out to a number of analysts, I think before the season even started, just to have a chat with them about life as an analyst, what they do outside of fantasy basketball, because for a lot of us, this isn't our full-time job. It's something that we do in our spare time. So yeah, I just thought it might be interesting, and actually running with this now is decent timing because, as we know, the fantasy playoffs are coming. I think I've got some playoffs actually starting this week in one of my leagues. So they're just around the corner, and once they start and then we work through the playoffs, the fantasy content actually reduces a little bit because less people are playing. We don't have fantasy in the playoffs generally, in the real life playoffs. So yeah, we'll be releasing one of these maybe once a week, twice a week. It just depends how I can schedule it. But so we'll jump in. Zak, you can see his head there. Thank you for joining me. It's 9:30 here, 5:30 p.m. for you, I think. So getting ready for dinner and that sort of thing, I would think.
Yeah, getting ready for dinner. We had a busy day today. Saturday mornings, I coach my oldest son's basketball team, so Saturday mornings we have practice, and then we had to go out and run some errands. So, yeah, kind of a busy day today. We got some Chinese takeout, so that's going to be dinner tonight. And yeah, man, I'm happy to be here. You and I have known each other for a while, but I never expected to be going balls deep with you. So this is a this is a treat.
It is a treat indeed, and for everyone listening, it should be a treat. So as I said, this is the first one. So we got. I mean, I've sent you through some questions, but they're pretty broad questions. We might go for 10 minutes. We might go for 20 minutes. I'm not sure. Depends how much or how little you're willing to tell me and talk about your life. Look, I guess starting, and this is a question that I get occasionally, and it popped up on Reddit the other day, is just talking about, I guess, your journey fantasy basketball wise to where you are now. So how did you get into fantasy basketball? When did it become, when did that light or that switch sort of go off as, hey, this is something that I might want to do a little more than just playing with my mates? So I'll leave it to you. How did this come about for you?
Yeah, man. So I've been playing fantasy sports for a number of years, football and basketball, and obviously following along with both sports just as a fan for many years. My journey as an analyst started, it's been 5 years ago now. So if I can get into the weeds a little bit, so this kind of started 2018. I was in the final semester finishing up my master's program. I had gone back to school to try to, kind of kickstart my career again. So I was doing that. I was working full time and, still into sports, obviously. And I I said, man, I need to do a little something for fun, right? I was working full time, had the kids, was doing school, and I'm like, man, I need a little kind of creative outlet for fun. So I put in at Fantasy Pros just to write some news articles and recap some football games, and I got turned down. I said, okay, fine, yeah. I said, I got other shit that I'm working on right now. I'll go back to the drawing board with that. And a few months later, finished the master's program. Me and a couple of buddies had been doing a podcast just for guys in our football league, essentially just talking shit on one another, recapping the week's games, just kind of having fun with each other. And we started just a real cheap website on WordPress, and we're just publishing articles every week, doing podcasts. We did that for a few months and reapplied to Fantasy Pros, and they took me on that time now that I had a little bit of work to show them, doing an article a week with them. So I did that for a little while, unpaid, just throwing out articles, once a week, twice a week sometimes if they had the opportunity, just kind of jumping on whatever was available for them at the time. And then so that was in August, I had my first article published with them. And then in December, I took a chance on Rotowire to jump in with the NBA news desk because they had an opening available at that time, and went through that interview process, went through the training period, and got on with them in January of 2019. I did, I believe, a season of NBA notes with them, and then 2 or 3 seasons of player previews, the little ones that show up in the right-hand corner of Rotowire on the player page. And I did 2 or 3 years worth of 70, 80, 90 players for the season. So I took on a good chunk with them, and then just was devoting a lot of time to fantasy football with Fantasy Pros. And by the time it was all said and done with Fantasy Pros, I've written over 500 solo articles with them, thousands of player blurbs. I was doing NBA content for them, editing, writing, just kind of a bit of everything. And was kind of getting tired of it, was getting to be a grind, was looking to focus on something else. And I realized, man, I love doing fantasy hoops content more than I like doing fantasy football content. And so I took a chance with NBC. Huge brand. Rotoworld obviously is very respected. So I reached out to Ryan and Doc after I put my application in. Had good interviews with both of them, and the rest is history. I ended up getting on with them in November of 2021, so it's going on a year and a half at this point. And yeah, it was just wonderful, man. And I know a lot of the guys over there. A lot of the guys that used to be over there, Ryan, Doc, Jonas, Jared, just an awesome crew of guys. And, I just kind of jumped in feet first doing news shifts with them, had some podcast opportunities, had some article opportunities, got to work on last year's draft guide. So yeah, man, it's been kind of a long and convoluted journey in the fantasy space. Currently I'm doing a lot of gambling content as well for Sportsbook Review. They're an awesome company out of Canada. I publish an article with them about usually 7 articles a week, 6 or 7 a week, in addition to the Rotoworld stuff. So yeah, man, I've just kind of fully embraced the fantasy hoops experience, and I never look back. I don't regret getting out of fantasy football content at all. Even though that's king in the fantasy sports industry, that's the money maker. That's, what most sites are pumping their time and energy into. But fantasy hoops, man, for me, it's where it's at. And the community itself, man, I've been a part of both communities, and fantasy hoops community, man, it doesn't get any better and more welcoming than that. I can't think of a single person in the fantasy hoops community that I've ever had a negative thing to say about. So yeah, very, very glad that I made that choice to switch over to that type of content.
Yeah, look, I second that. Like, the community is amazing, the fantasy basketball, where everyone's willing to help everyone, which I think is key. Like, we promote each other's stuff, we jump on each other's shows. Being from Australia, obviously, for fantasy football I know of fantasy football, and I do have quite a few mates that play fantasy football, but I don't. But I have heard from a lot of people that a lot of the way people get into fantasy basketball is through fantasy football.
Yeah.
So, and I think fantasy football is more of a points-based format. Is that right?
It is, yeah. There's no such thing as categories or Z
No.
scores or any of that fancy stuff. It's just, hey, I get so many points for rushing yards, receiving yards, and then the differential comes in if you want to do points per reception for certain players, or premium points, or points for every touchdown, whether it be 6 or 4. That's kind of where your nuances come into play.
Yeah, and so I guess that makes sense then, that because I'm in a couple of points leagues just to basically, so I've got my toe in the water in that space, so I know what's happening. But to me, category leagues are so much more fun.
Yeah.
But I can see why people would like points leagues are so popular, and so many questions that I get are about rostering or trading or drafting in points formats. And I go, well, why are all these people playing points leagues? And I think it is because that transition from fantasy football to fantasy basketball is a straight points format. So not surprising that you came in through that, down that path, I guess. And yeah, so you were with RotoWire when I was with RotoWire in 2019. You said so. So were you in Vegas in 2019? Did you go to the end of season trip thing that they did in Vegas?
No, I did not, man. But I did see some pictures of your beautiful face out there hanging out with out with the crew. So no, I didn't go on that trip. But yeah, that was the same time. I think that was about the same time I started following you on social media and just kind of knowing who you were at that time.
Yeah, no, it was a good trip. I'm hoping to get back over to Vegas at some point. It's an interesting place to visit, that's for sure. Okay, so look, that's I guess how you got to where you are now, and as you said, you're with NBC Sports Edge or Rotoworld still, and doing a lot, I would assume, given that, as you said, there were a number of guys like Doc and Jonas who were there and aren't there anymore. They're now doing different things, and most of them are actually with RotoWire, have come across and helping in that space. So you're doing the player blurbs, I would assume, or at least some of those player blurbs. What else are you sort of currently working on with NBC?
So that's it for now. We do the shifts, just to stay on top of the news, so many hours at a time. And yeah, I have taken on a little bit more responsibility, but because of my full-time job, I'm still doing, at max, like 5 shifts a week, 4 or 5 a week. So the rest of that work has fallen to Noah Rubin and Raphael Johnson. And both of those dudes are just phenomenal. Noah was a finalist for Player Notes Writer of the Year through FSWA. And Raph is just, I'm not sure if you've ever had the pleasure of talking with Raph before, but he's just, he's a no bullshit type of guy. He's very just, we call him the robot because he just cranks out. Seriously, man, we're on the group chat saying, hey, I got Trey Jones. Hey, I got Giannis. And he'll fire back and say, man, I posted that 5 minutes ago. And it's all the time if we're on there with him. So those guys are the backbone of the site, man. They're holding it down.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I'm doing my part, 4 or 5 shifts a week. Like I said, they're handling everything else. And then whoever's on the late shift usually handles the pickups of the day article. But we just haven't had a whole lot of time for additional articles at this time.
No.
We put out a few last week, like fantasy awards and those kind of things. I do the live stream every Tuesday. As you know, I've had you on a couple of times. So I'm working on that. And then we'll be talking draft guide here at the end of the season and seeing what the 3 of us can put our heads together and figure out.
Yeah, look, I think like having been there and done that in terms of player blurbs, I don't think people realize how much time player blurbs take up. Like they are full on.
It is.
And obviously they slow down at certain periods of the day, but generally speaking, for that, especially the lead up to games with the injury reports, and I'm sure you feel the same in that the stupid Lakers always reporting LeBron James probable or questionable, and you have to report on it every game, even though 99% of the time he actually plays. you still have to write a blurb for him being questioned. Man, yeah, it's the just three of you doing those blurbs. I'm pretty blown away that you're able to do anything else other than that.
Yeah, it's a grind, man. It's like you said, people don't realize that it does take time to go into that, because you can't just say, "Oh, LeBron James is questionable." You got to put, because anybody can go on and follow Shams and Woj and find that information out themselves. They're coming to look at player blurbs to see what kind of actionable advice can I get off of this. Yeah. And so you, as the analyst, you don't, people don't realize you don't have every depth chart and every injury history and every players' averages just rolling around in your head. You got to go actually out there and figure out, how is he doing in his last couple of games, and who's going to benefit from this, who's also out. And then you got to put that actionable advice in there, man. It's definitely a grind.
It is. It's tough. So I guess that sort of leads into, as you said, you do have a full-time job. So this isn't what you do to earn a living to survive. So full-time work, is that something like, are you happy to share a bit of information about what it is you do outside of fantasy basketball from a work perspective?
Yeah, I'm happy to share that. So I've been with my current company now going on 4 years. I love it. They're wonderful. We're a government contractor for the U.S. Coast Guard. I'm a Scrum Master for one of our IT teams. And essentially, if anybody is not sure what that is, it's on the project management type of vein, but there's no actual management going on. It's described as a facilitator. So I run daily meetings with our team, try to help people stay organized and on task, communicate with different stakeholders that we might have for the projects that we're working on. And so, yeah, that's something. Before that, I just started this role as Scrum Master a couple months ago. And prior to that, for the last 3.5 years, I was a business analyst for our audit team. So same company, same, working with Coast Guard, in the IT field. So, yeah, that's what I've been doing for about 4 years now. Okay.
And so with that being IT, and I mean, COVID obviously impacted this as well, but you have the ability to work from home doing that. It's not, you don't have to go into an office or anything like that anymore.
Yeah. So that was kind of the great thing. Double-edged sword, but we, got to go home due to COVID and work from home most of the time. And, our company was doing its job. We were delivering the results that were being asked, and there was not a pushback to say, hey, you need to come in every single day. And at this point, just about everybody is fully remote now, because we continue to deliver what we are supposed to, and they have no problem with it.
Yeah, look, I mean, you could do a whole nother show on what productivity is like when you work from home, that sort of thing. So, and it was the same here. Like, we all obviously we set up to work from home during COVID, and now we're not. I'm sort of 50-50, so I'm back in the office half the time, and I do a lot of face-to-face stuff with families and things like that. But I do also have the ability to work from home, and always nice to have the basketball on in the background when I'm working from home, so I can stay on top of the game. For
sure.
And so you've got kids, obviously. You've already alluded to that. Your kids are younger than mine from memory. Yours are still, I can hear. Is that running around that I can hear?
Pretty loud, isn't it? I'm down here in the basement, man, and those footsteps just echo. Boom, boom, boom. Yeah.
So you've got 3 kids, 2 kids.
So I got 4 kids.
4 kids, that's right.
Yeah, 4.
Yeah.
I told you I had my oldest son. I've been coaching his basketball team now for about 2 years, when he was able to get into squirts, which is like the kindergarten division, and he'll be 8 next month. And so he was technically still supposed to be in the squirts division, but we moved him up to last season up to 3rd and 4th grade, and then 8 and 9-year-old division, just to kind of help him with his development, because in the squirt division there's not a lot of calls with traveling. The hoop is much lower, so it's really helped his development. And we have our final regular season game tomorrow, and then playoffs this week. So, have my oldest son is doing that. I have a 6-year-old. He'll be 6 next month, so he's eligible to start playing organized basketball. So I'll be coaching 2 teams here for the spring, and yes, spending most of the week at the rec center, which will be fun, man. I love it. And we have twin girls that'll be 5 in August. And they're into sports as well. They did dance for a little while, weren't crazy about it. They're in basketball now, just doing skills and drills stuff. And then they're signed up for soccer when the weather gets a little bit nicer.
Right.
So yeah, a lot of running around with the kids, man. A lot of fun, running around and doing that kind of stuff with them.
Yeah, just something else to take up your time and stop you from fantasy basketball.
That's it, man.
Yeah, and so basketball, football, any sport. So were you sporty when you were younger? Did you play, or was this more of a fan watching on from the sideline kind of thing?
It was mostly a fan thing. I played a little soccer and t-ball when I was younger. I played basketball at the same rec center until I was in middle school. So I played from like 2nd grade through 5th grade and really enjoyed it. But yeah, I'll be honest with you, man, I was not the most athletic. I was more of like the academic team type of guy. But yeah, always had a love for sports.
Yeah. Yeah. And look, I mean, it's great that your kids are into sport. I would love my kids to be into sport. Unfortunately, that's not, well, no, I lie. My daughter is, and she's about to turn 16 though. So she's got a lot of competing priorities at the moment.
Yeah, right. Right.
But she still does some sport when she has a bit of time. But my son, who's almost 13, he's we tried him with all sorts of sport: basketball, soccer, football, rock climbing, parkour, a range of things. And he did it for a term and then sort of went, it's not for me.
Right.
So the only thing he's into and has ever been into is Dungeons and Dragons. So something that I know zero about.
Yeah, dude, I got my sister and her husband play D&D a lot. I got buddies that play D&D. Man, there is absolutely ain't nothing wrong with that, man. Do what you love.
Yeah, no. Look, it's fine. Oh, there he is crawling in the background.
There's as if on cue, man.
Oh man. So look, we're at 22 minutes. So I guess now we've sort of covered you and what it is you do and a bit about your life. But things that I like personally, I like TV, I like movies, I just like sport in general. So I thought we'd just spend a couple of minutes, if it is like if you're into movies or if you're into TV or music or anything like that. What sort of movies like do you have? I love horror movies, so I could speak for days about horror movies. But are there favorite TV shows, favorite bands, anything like that people just might find interesting?
Sure, man. I'll be honest with you. I'm not a big movie guy. My wife married the wrong man because she and her family are huge on movies. They've watched every movie under the sun. And my wife does this thing where she just loves IMDb. She'll pull up every actor. We'll be watching a show or movie. She'll, I know them from Zach. What do I know them from? And just start scrolling through the phone. And for me, I don't have the attention span to watch movies. I'm usually just I fall asleep on the couch, or I'll be scrolling through my phone, getting up to make noise in the kitchen and piss her off. And I do love TV though. I love watching sports. Like I mentioned, my older son is all into it. He's always at, Dad, what games are on tonight? Dad, what was the score of this? How many threes did Clay have? Blah, on and on. But for me, I watch a lot of cartoons still. I watch The Simpsons a lot. I watch a lot of the stuff that my kids, enjoy watching. Watch, SpongeBob and whatever other kind of stuff they're watching. Watch a lot of baking and cooking shows just on my own. My wife and I like watching all that kind of stuff together. And then true crime stuff. I'm huge on true crime with the podcast, with the TV shows. So that's kind of what I'm into as far as like a watching thing. As far as music goes, a lot of rock, a lot of heavy metal. I grew up, my dad was born in the early 50s, so I grew up listening to a lot of classic rock, Zeppelin, the Stones, the Beatles, all that kind of stuff. And then as I got older, I started getting into, System of a Down, Slipknot, Maiden, Metallica, that kind of thing. So I listened to a lot of that kind of stuff. Here recently, man, I've been stuck on Harry Styles' new album, which is phenomenal. I can't get that out of my head. That's been awesome. But yeah, for the most part, that's the kind of music that I'm into. My wife was we're high school sweethearts, and so when I knew her in high school, she was a bit of an emo girl. So we kind of listened to all that kind of stuff as well that she puts on, Fall Out Boy and things of that nature.
Oh
yeah.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, I mean, I figured you've got an Iron Maiden shirt on. I figured that was the music that you're into.
Yeah.
So yeah, your relationship actually sounds the complete opposite to mine, because I love movies. I go to the movies. I sit up. I watch a movie most nights.
Okay.
Whereas I think my wife and I mean, we've been married now for 16 years, I think, and we've been to the movies together maybe 5 times.
Oh, no kidding.
Time. Yeah, she's more of a book person, so she likes reading her books, and whereas I'll watch anything. I'll watch any sport that's on. I don't care what it is.
Yeah, right.
And TV shows. Yeah, look, true crime. I love the true crime. Netflix has a lot of true crime documentaries on there that I like watching. And working my way through Last of Us at the moment, which has been really good. So look, that's sort of it, I guess. I think people know you a little bit more now, know a little bit more about you. I said I wasn't going to talk fantasy, and I have flagged this question with you, but the question that I'm going to ask every analyst that I have on, looking ahead to next year, if we were to do a fantasy draft next week, where would you take, and what do you think the ADP will be for Victor Wembanyama?
Oof. I would say he's not getting outside the top 20, and I wouldn't let him fall that far. But I imagine, for me, I would take him inside the top 20. I imagine there's going to be a lot of people that take him inside the top 12. I mean, man, the hype around this dude, I can't remember when there's been this Zion, obviously. But, I mean, even outside of Zion, when's the last time you heard a guy hyped up this much?
Yeah, I think this is the most I've heard, even more than Zion, I think. Zion probably hasn't turned out as we'd all hoped for with the injuries.
Not quite.
And I do, I mean, my friends and I, we chat about Wembanyama a little bit and talk about how is his body going to hold up. I guess that's the question that's going to come in, because I think he's just grown. I think he's 7'5" now. I think that's what I read. So yeah, look, I mean, there's a bit of concern there, I guess, about how his body holds up to an 82 game season. But it's look, I'm much like you. I think if you want him next season, you're going to have to take him in the first round. I think that's where it'll get to. I don't know. I'll probably take him in a league just so I can have him, because I think if he's healthy and lives up to the hype, he's going to be a lot of fun. But I'm not. Yeah, we'll see. But I think he's going to be a first-round guy. So look, I mean, that'll probably do it. I think that seemed to go pretty well. We're almost on half an hour. Hopefully, I wasn't too intrusive and didn't push too hard to chat about things. I mean, you touched on this earlier, but in terms of where people can find you and what you're doing at the moment, do you want to spruik yourself a little bit?
Sure. Yeah, you can find me on Twitter at Zak the Monster. We do our weekly live stream with NBC Sports Edge. I do work for NBC Sports Edge and also publish daily betting articles with Sportsbook Review. So you can check me out there. Shoot me a message on Twitter if you have any fantasy questions. I answer those as much as I'm able. And Adam, thanks for having me on, brother. I appreciate it, man. This was fun.
No worries at all. Thanks for making the time around that dinner time. I'll be on your show, I'm sure, in the next few weeks. At some point, we'll find a date. So that will do it for today's show. Remember, you can check out all of our content, including access to our Discord server at fbibasketball.com. This podcast should be up on Spotify, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, as soon as B-Dub does it for me, because I don't know how to do it. We'd love it if you can give us a thumbs up if you are watching this on YouTube. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. We're looking to build our audience up. Until next time, catch you later.
You just listened to another episode from the Fantasy Basketball International Podcast Network. Thanks for joining us. And for more information about joining our community, please check out our website at FBI.